أعوذ بالله السميع العليم من الشيطان الرجيم بسم الله الرحمن الرحيم والصلاة والسلام على رسول الله اللهم صل وسلم وبارك على محمد وعلى آله وصحبه والتابعين بإحسان إلى يوم الدين. We start in the name of Allah, the most gracious, most merciful, and we bear witness there is no deity worthy worship except Allah. Praise and glory be to Him, and that Muhammad be the seal of messengers. He was sent as a mercy to all mankind. May peace and blessing of Allah be upon him, his family, his companions, and those who followed his path until the day of judgment. I greet you with the greeting of Islam. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh. Peace be upon you all, dear brothers, dear sisters, dear listeners, and to our guest for today, inshallah, for this A2Z show, or quality news and views, with brother Asad Zaman, inshallah. Inshallah, you are well. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.
Wa alaikum assalam wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Yes.
How are you keeping, inshallah? Okay? Family all right? Alhamdulillah, everything okay?
Alhamdulillah ala kulli hal.
MashaAllah. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala make it easy for everybody, those who have been infected with COVID-19. May Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala give them a quick recovery, inshallah. And those who passed away, may Allah has mercy and forgiveness and give their families for patience and a great reward. Ameen.
Ameen.
Now, of course, we have a lot of the things. We usually start with the easy one, but I think you have been on this Minbar al-Jumaa or the Friday pulpit, talking about your today's khutbah, and where have you been, and how many khutbahs, and how was the attendance regarding COVID-19 and social distancing and all these kind of things. Therefore, we start with that, inshallah. And then we might look to other things as well. The 9/11, today is 9/11. I think the 19th anniversary of that tragic incident in human history. Anyway, we'll talk about it as well. And we'll have maybe link about other things as well as we go along. Now, go for we have actually sex relationship education as well, but I think the start of the school was starting, but some schools have to close again. And we'll talk about it as well, about the youth and how the universities are coming to open up as well. And I think an army of students, almost more than 20 or 30,000 students will be coming to Greater Manchester anyway. So therefore, we'll talk about it as well. What is the effect of it on Greater Manchester area as well. Now, let's go to this Friday pulpit as well. You have been, where did you give your sermon today?
Okay, I was in the city centre of Manchester, Muslim Youth Foundation, and I had to do 3 khutbahs and 3 jumaas. So because of the number of people that normally come there, each one was packed. At
what time did you start? First one?
Well, they have a fatwa from a sheikh that they can actually start before the actual school time, because it's a city centre and people are working.
Yes.
So they have and you have a large number, so they have to have 3 khutbahs. In fact, because normally they can have about 700 in one go, but because of the social distancing that they've had to put into practice, that's been reduced to a maximum of about 100.
All right.
And I would think that's probably the case in all mosques around the world, I suppose, who are practicing social distancing, that they've been reduced to, just a 1/7 of what they normally can hold.
And I think about regarding starting the khutbah before Dhuhr time, there is a fatwa, Islamic opinion by the European Council, fatwa and research, and this is in the Hanbali thought as well. You can actually start the khutbah before the entering of the Dhuhr time as well.
Yes, but we actually do the Zohar prayer, the actual Jummah prayer before the Dhuhr starts as well. So
yes,
Dhuhr starts about just after 1 o'clock, about 1:10 I think it is. And we actually, the first Jummah was held at about 12:30.
12:30, okay. Right, okay.
Anyhow, the topic, as you asked, today was really about examining our role, not just in society, but in this world. And it was around the ayah of the Quran. As I started off by saying that, look, when Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala decided that the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam was going to be the Khatam al-Nabiyyin, the final prophet of Allah who was going to be sent to humanity, he gave that responsibility of giving the message to the people, which always actually laid with the prophet of the time. But because there's no more prophet after Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that responsibility was given to us, the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, of conveying the message of da'wah. And therefore, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala has encapsulated and highlighted this very important mission and responsibility in the ayah of the Quran, kuntum khayra ummatin ukhrijat lin-nas ta'muruna bil ma'ruf wa tanhauna 'anil munkar wa tu'minuna billah. That you are the best of people, the best people ever created, the Ummah of Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam. Why? Because you encourage and join what is right and forbid what is wrong, and you believe in Allah. Now, Ibn Kathir says about this ayah, is an incredibly important ayah, which puts the mantle of leadership on our shoulders as Muslims. If you utter La ilaha illallah Muhammadur Rasulullah from your mouth, you believe it, then you have been given this position of leadership. Leadership, of course, leaders, they lead people to what? Well, our mission is to encourage people to out of the darkness of Jahiliyyah towards the light of Sirat al-Mustaqim, the straight path, the path that Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala wants the whole of humanity to follow. So the purpose of our existence, which was the same purpose from Adam al-Islam and who was around with him, right up to the last day, is وَمَا خَلَقْتُ الْجِنَّ وَالْإِنسَ إِلَّا لِيَعْبُدُونَ. That Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us very clearly, I didn't create you for any other purpose but really to worship me. In other words, I've created Jannah and Jahannam, and I've created this scenario in which I will create you human beings. I'll throw problems and all sorts of tests and sufferings your way to see who is obedient and who is not, and though who deserve Jannah and who does not.
So
and
paradise and hellfire, yes.
So therefore, once that purpose of our existence, the raison d'être of our existence, the essence of the purpose of us being alive is established, then that extra responsibility has been given to us, the Ummah Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam, that it is our responsibility not just to live by the purpose of our existence, but to convey that purpose to the whole of humanity. And that has been put into stone, inscribed within law, if you like, for us with this ayah of kuntum khayra ummah. So that is and that's the role we have. Whether we like it or not, each and every single one of us is a leader. And of course, a leader needs to have certain qualities. And we need to ask ourselves whether we have these qualities or not. One of those qualities, of course, is sincerity. That you're always going to be sincere. You're there to make sure that you practice what you preach. There's no point in you saying one thing to your flock and then not practicing it yourself. You say to your son, for example, the first leadership position we have, of course, is within our homes. Over our bodies first, the jihad al-nafs, that's the first leadership position we have. And then within our homes, in terms of our wives and children. And they will not respect us. And we will not respect ourselves if we are not genuine and sincere to ourselves. And if we are constantly going against what we believe, that is not going to help us psychologically or spiritually. We know it is time for salah, we know it is fard, and yet we don't do it. That creates a major conflict within us, ourselves. Now, on the one hand, we have this belief, firm belief, and yet on the other, we go against it and create a certain psychosis within our own minds. This is called, in psychological terms, it's going against your own value and belief system. Cognitive dissonance is what it's actually called. Cognitive dissonance, which basically means you hold a certain set of values, but your behavior goes against those values. And that creates a certain problem within the individual. And how many of us suffer from that? We know we must do a certain thing. We know we must behave in a certain way, and yet we go against it. Not knowing that we should do something and then not doing it is one thing. But to know that we should do something or behave in a certain way and we go against that behavior, that's something very different and will cause a very major conflict within us. So that's the leadership within us. And then again, if our behavior does not is not consistent with our pronouncements, we tell our children, we must, you must go and do your salah 5 times a day, and they look at us and we're not praying, they will see us. I mean, children now, they will tell you in your face. But if they are too respectful and they don't tell you in your face, Baba, you're telling me to do this, but you don't do it yourself, they will feel this man is a hypocrite. This man that I'm supposed to respect and love is a hypocrite. And of course, same goes with other things. You're smoking and you tell your son, no, this is wrong. You should not smoke. It's bad for your health. Excuse me, Baba, Dad, what about you? Why are you smoking? And drinking and alcohol and any other kind of behavior that goes against our belief system. So we need to take on that leadership role, first over our own nafs, then within our homes, and then of course within society. And I was saying that if you look at society today, in fact, before I come to that point about society, the Prophet ﷺ emphasized this leadership element by saying that you are shepherds looking after your flock of sheep. What happens? What does a shepherd do? He's constantly on the lookout to make sure, number one, that no member of the sheep goes wandering off, and of course there is danger there for them. And secondly, no one comes and harms those sheep. So you are constantly there protecting them. And he continued in the hadith, the Prophet ﷺ said, each and every single one of you is a guardian. The leader over his citizens is a guardian. Just think about the word guardian. He didn't say a dictator. We've got plenty of dictators running our countries. He said a guardian. Secondly, the father, a husband, is the guardian over his wife and children. And the wife is the guardian over what the husband owns, his home and the children. So every single one of us is a guardian. Every single one of us is a leader within our own domain and our own scope. So the question is, do we have those leadership skills? Are we implementing them? Are we sincere or are we hypocritical? And are we implementing those skills to make sure that our children are given the time that they deserve, which is their haqq in terms of tarbiyah? Are you as a father playing your role as you should in the development of your children? Is the wife playing her role within the home, making sure that she's not infringing the rights of the husband nor the rights of the children. And of course, husband, of course, making sure that he doesn't infringe the rights of his wife or children. So therefore, you know, this is a very, very important role Allah has given to each and every single one of us. And especially now, and we can go on to perhaps talk about this a little later, especially in these times that society, especially Western society, not just European, but Western as a whole, society has completely lost direction. Now our children are being taught, if you're a boy thinking you are in the wrong body, no problem, we will give you the puberty blockers and the hormone therapy to turn
If we
you.
are talking about the sex relationship education now, yeah?
Yes. I mean, this is what started. This is what our children are being told all over the world now, especially in the West. If you're a girl, you want to become a boy, don't worry about it. We'll sort out your puberty blockers and hormone therapy and stuff. If you're a man, you suddenly want to decide you want to be a woman, no problem. It's you know, gender is now fluid. You can be a man, you can be a woman, you can be both, you can be neither, you can be non-binary. You can choose 100 different genders. There's a whole spectrum of genders now. You know, you are free. This is the collapse of civilization. This is the collapse of humanity.
Therefore, we don't even know our nature. We don't know even our nature.
This is it. What Allah has given us, society is now saying, no, this is all wrong. Knows billah, Allah got it wrong. It's not just man and woman. No, you can choose your gender. And so today I want to be a woman, tomorrow I want to be a man. So what happens? Men who want to go inside women's toilets, they just say, okay, I'm a woman now. And they can go inside a woman's toilet and she has no right to complain. If a woman wants to go inside a man's toilet, okay, today I'm a man. And the same with boys and girls. And you have a complete unraveling of society, complete breakdown. And the interesting thing is that, I mean, of course, along with it, all relationships are okay. All relationships are okay. So whether it's man, woman, 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 man, man, and of course, very soon it'll be man, child, it'll be children, children, it'll be with animals, it'll be with your sister, your brother, your mother, your father, your brother, sister, whoever you want a sexual relationship with, anything goes. That's the society that we have now entered. That's the reality. This is, you know, wake up. You know, this you're not listening. You're not in a nightmare. You're not in a dream. This is happening.
It's why when you talked about that verse, this best nation which has been brought up to people, that you have to enjoy what is good, forbid what is evil, and then believe in Allah. Belief came to the third position. You have to do those two things before you believe, because if you don't do those, it has a repercussion on your belief, isn't it? You know, enjoy what is good and forbid what is evil, yeah?
It's all about justice, being just to yourself, being just in society. The justice, you see, when you are just to yourself, and then with justice comes encouraging what is right. That justice element, jihad al-nafs, is doing justice to yourself. And that justice means doing what is right.
Struggling within yourself, yeah.
Within yourself. And you see, this is part of our fitrah, our primordial nature. Everybody is born with a sense of justice. Even with a child, if you are slightly unjust, that child is going to feel it. That sense of justice is very, very strong within even an 8 or 9-year-old. How dare you treat me different to my sister or my brother or whatever? Or how dare you treat me differently to other members of class? That sense of justice is within us. We don't teach that. It's there. What we can do is erode it. through bad behavior, through lying, through being through deception. We can teach the erosion of a sense of justice, but that sense of justice is there within us. And that erosion results in people doing evil deeds. They know what they're doing is wrong, but they manage to override that sense of justice. And so they will indulge in behavior they know is wrong, and they don't have a problem with it. Why? Because it serves their interest. Other things.
And you know, these relationships between man and woman and marriage, of course, we go around and now marriage, and people marrying very late, you see, 35, 40, and still thinking about marriage, and they are not marrying early or young enough. Do you think that kind of problem as well, people not marrying young enough, is causing a problem as well?
Unquestionably, unquestionably, the Prophet said, as soon as you start to feel sexual emotions, get married if you can. So, you know, we should, even the law of this country in Britain, if you're a boy or a girl is 16, they can legally get married.
I mean, that's with the permission of parents. I think 18, they can get legally a parent. 16, they have to have their parents' consent.
Well, no. Up to the age of 16 is parental consent. After 16, you're free. You don't need any parental consent.
Right.
So you can legally get married under Islamic law, under British law. And therefore, we should encourage this. Today, if an 18-year-old girl wants to get married, we think, oh, you're too young. What do you mean? I teach, and you've taught, 15 and 16-year-olds. Even a 15-year-old girl, she's a woman. Of course, you have those who may be a little bit immature, but by and large, generally, even a 15, never mind 16.
And with the social media, they're exposed to this, isn't it?
Oh,
you have to get them.
So the internet has left no sense of innocence. Everybody, or children now, 10-year-olds, 9-year-olds, know exactly what's going on, and they're exposed to the most filthy, disgusting stuff. And they're watching it. They're watching it. 10-year-olds are watching the most filthy, disgusting stuff. You can't hide it from children. It's there, as I say, just 2 clicks away on the internet. Stuff that the parents would never consider even looking at because it's disgusting. 10, 11, 12-year-olds are now watching it regularly. Boys, and even sadly, girls as well. So this is something that we need to understand. We need to make marriage much easier. And we're going into a totally different area.
I understand, But what is enjoin, what is good, isn't it? That's what you do. Have a problem, how you solve it out.
It's a highly sexualized society. And therefore, to create the right conditions for a boy or a girl to express that natural urge Allah has put within us, to express it in a halal way, as parents, we should remove whatever obstacles there are to make it easier for our children and give them that sense of responsibility. A 16-year-old.
Are you saying that, of course, now we know under sex and relationship education is not compulsory and the parents can opt out in primary school. In secondary school, it's there.
Yes, not relationship.
Huh?
Sex education, they can opt out in primary school, but not relationship education.
Right, okay, therefore that's one thing. And then now do you think that, at the beginning of education, when Muslims starts doing and establish schools as well, they establish them in single-sex form. We don't mix through the young age. We don't mix. They have primary school, and we have here, single-sex. Some grammar schools and everything who are single-sex schools. Master High School for girls and Manchester Grammar School and all these kind of things, KD Grammar School. We also have independent schools, but the mixing of sex as well in primary schools and everything. And then you have a secondary school. Now, do you think that this relationship, we thought that a lot of people are saying should not be dealt with within the primary school, but it should be dealt with in secondary school in an orderly manner, you know, relationship within marriage. If some people have a problem with their gender and everything, those are special education needs. They should be looked after in a different way. But the majority, you know, the majority of the population, they don't have a problem with their sexuality and everything, and the relationship should be within marriage. And therefore, I had an experience. We ran a school, a Crescent Community High School, and we made a syllabus for the girls to know about marriage in the secondary school from the year 7 to year 11, and they enjoyed the course, you know, to how to become, as you said this, you become aware of your sexuality, about the marriage, you know, about the opposite sex, what is right, what is wrong, and of course, you said the religious, the moral and ethical framework which keep things in order, isn't it?
Yeah. And also, to add to that, to help girls to be proud to be girls and boys to be proud to be boys, and not to create this massive confusion in their minds about, well, you know, I may look like a girl and I may have the parts of a girl, but, you know, I like to play football rather than do girly things. Therefore, maybe I'm in the wrong body. Maybe I should start to, you know, speak to the doctor to give me, hormone therapy and puberty blockers, basically chemicals to change the very nature of the person. Maybe these are the thoughts which are being put into our children now from a very, very early age, 4, 5, 6 years of age. These thoughts are being put in that, you know, you're a girl and you have kind of boyish features. You're probably a boy, really. You may look like a girl, and again, same with boys who look like boys, but maybe they're not as aggressive as other boys, and they are going to be made to think, well, maybe I'm born in the wrong body here. I should really have been a girl. And it's essentially saying, Allah got it wrong. You know, he's given me the wrong body. You know, this is essentially what children are being told. And therefore, they're being sent to certain clinics, and not many questions are being asked. And there have been thousands of cases of teenagers saying, why were we allowed to make this decision? It's ruined my life. It's messed me up psychologically. I just mentioned it. This is how I felt at that time. I was just going through a phase. I should have been given far more counseling, and I wasn't. I was given drugs to block my puberty and hormone therapy and stuff. And now I'm seriously, you know, mentally, as well as in many cases physically, in terms of health, etc., messed up because of all the hormone therapy and stuff, which was there basically to change my very nature, which Allah had created me with. I remember reading this, this thing between, you know, men and women thing has been going on for many, many years, decades. I think it was about 1980, 85. There was a French geneticist, a Nobel Prize winner, and he wrote about this idea of, women who wanted to become like men and taking, all these sex changes and stuff. And he said, and this is a Nobel Prize winner in genetic research, he said, every gene in a man's body has got the name of his sex written on it. Every gene in a woman's body has got the name of her sex written on it. Why on earth would they want to change? You know, it doesn't make any sense at all.
Therefore, you want to like a genetically modified food, you want a genetically modified human.
Exactly. every gene, the billions and billions of genes, every single one of them has got the name of our sex written on it. And now they tell us, no, no. And of course, there's no science behind this. It's just loud lobbies.
Those are the parents sometimes help, because sometimes parents get married and then instead of getting a boy, for example, they get a girl, and they wish always they have a boy instead of a girl, and vice versa, you know. Do that kind of psychology doesn't help the children?
Well, I mean, sometimes you have girls who do behave more boyish, and the parents will dress them up as boys, and they'll call them tomboy. I don't know if you've heard of this term.
Yes, I heard it, yes.
Yeah, tomboy is basically a girl who is a bit more lively, who's a bit more active, and so she's, her mum just dresses her up in boys' clothes, not realizing how much damage that she's doing to this girl who's going to start thinking like a boy, rather than encourage her to, be proud of who she is as a girl.
You know about this is enjoin what is good for body and evil as well. Do you think that is right to in high school, for example, as far as I think a lot of the parents, majority of parents, they are against this relationship and this all kind of education and confusing kids when they are young in primary school. But in a secondary school, do you think that the curriculum of the relationship should teach about, relationships, sexuality, about the science part of it and everything. And of course, the relationship is a second part of it, that they should teach children about, and marriage and, what is the aims and objective of marriage. One of it is procreation, to have children. And there are some people who wants to limit the growth of humanity, by all means, It's like they are providing for them. Therefore, do you think that in relationship education in primary school, they should be teaching it within the marriage concept and definition, what is male and what is female? Adam and Eve, peace be upon them, our mother and our father.
Yes, and not Adam and Steve. Look, here is the problem of secular liberalism. You see, what you just said goes completely against the principles of secular liberalism. Because what you said that we should be teaching them is what religion says. And secular liberalism is anti-God, anti-religion. And so secular liberalism doesn't accept any sense of morality or rules. It's whatever is passed in Parliament. That's your morality and rules. And if most of the members in Parliament are secular liberals who say, well, we can't see a good argument banning gay marriage, for example, then how can we vote against it? Because there is nothing to guide them. There's no moral framework to guide them. Religion has a moral framework. And so what you've said about the rules about marriage, but only between a man and a biological man and a biological woman, and we need to add those words in now. Yeah. And those who were born, male and born female. See, that comes from religion, and whatever religion you're talking about, they'll agree with that. The problem with secular liberalism is it's anything goes. And you just have to have a good enough, strong enough lobby that will get enough MPs on your side who will vote in Parliament the bill, and it becomes law. And it doesn't matter how crazy and how wrong what you are proposing is, you just need a majority in Parliament, and that's it. And there's no vetting of who can be a member of Parliament. They're not going to ask you about your beliefs and what your values. It's votes. So if you could be the worst person on the planet, you get enough people to vote for you, that's it, you're in parliament. You get enough of these people in parliament, you can pass whatever laws you want to.
And I think we might actually finish at this point, regarding that verse which we have started with, that you are the best nation brought up to people, you enjoy what is good, forbid what is evil, and you believe in Allah. Do you think that as a Muslim, it's our duty, and as you said, the Prophet, peace be upon him, he told us, you have to spread even one verse from what I have spread my message. And it's a duty to every Muslim or a believer, even because on this matter, for example, sex and relationship education, a lot of faith groups, Christian, Jews and Muslims and other faiths, they are against this kind of a mixture of relationships and all these kind of things. Do you think that it's our duty to speak about and do what is good and forbid evil and spread the message? And of course, being Muslim or not is not up to us. It's from God. God who guides. We don't guide ourselves. We just give information.
This is the perfect time, I feel, that we need to be standing up and speaking the truth. As Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us, "Ud'u ila sabili rabbika bil haqq bil hikmah ادعو إلى سبيل ربك بالحكمة والموعظة الحسنة وجادلهم بالتي هي أحسن." So Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala is telling us that invite others, it's a command. As you said, should we be doing it? It's a command from Allah to us who have been given the haqq, the truth, to convey this truth in the best possible way, and Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala tells us how. Bil hikmah, with wisdom, convey the truth and use the best, the most beautiful language. Wisdom, beautiful language and methodology, and wajadilhum billati hi ahsan. Whatever methods they use, whatever arguments they use, you use better arguments and better methodology to get your point across and to emphasize it, that you really, really must do this. He says, وَمَنْ أَحْسَنُ قَوْلًا مِمَّنْ دَعَا إِلَى اللَّهِ وَعَمِلَ صَالِحًا وَقَالَ إِنَّنِي مِنَ الْمُسْلِمِينَ. So it is really, to answer your question comprehensively, very much so, we need to stand up and speak the truth, but with wisdom and intelligence. Because right now we are the West, the thinking, the intelligent, the highly, technologically advanced West has completely lost direction. And the intellectuals within the West, and there's plenty of them, they can see that the West has lost direction by this transgender stuff, by this have whatever relationship you want. Marriage can be between any two people who want to be together. Doesn't matter about whether they're, what God says about their relationship. This is where we are with the West. Boy, you can become a girl, girl become a boy. There are no rules. The rule book has been thrown out of the window. Now is the time to stand up and say, no, sorry, society has lost direction. And you know what? Most people will agree with you. It's the elite, it's the minority elite who are pushing society in a wrong direction. And the vast majority, they can feel this is not right, but there's nothing they can do about it.
But at the end, I think the parents are the sole responsible for bringing their children. I think the schools are just a support system. And I believe, and maybe that's my final point, I think, is that you are putting the teachers in a very, very awkward situation.
Absolutely.
Regarding this.
Yes,
because you are their teacher, you are not their parent. and therefore you are supporting system, and therefore the parents have to take precedent whatever they want, and they are the sole responsible and even accountable here when they are young and in the hereafter as well as a parent. Therefore, accountability is there. Now let's move to, I think today is the 9/11, September 9th, 2001. There was a very tragic incident took place in the United States. Almost, I think by this occasion, our thoughts and prayers are to the 2,976 American people who lost their lives, including Muslims amongst them. And of course, may Allah mercy be upon their souls, and that God give their parents and their families and friends patience and great reward. By same token, up so far, almost 48,644 Afghans and 1,690,903 Iraqis lost their lives as innocent people aftermath of 9/11. And regarding that event, of course, is the 19th anniversary of that tragedy. How do you see it after that, and how the world has completely changed? And America especially, I think somebody said that as Americans, we cannot live unless we have an enemy, and we have to create an enemy to identify ourselves. And as you said about wrongdoings and enjoin what is good, forbidding evil, wars and conflicts. And of course, 95% of the those who lose their lives in wars and conflicts are innocent. And somebody was saying about 250 million humans have been lost, 65 million of them in the Bolshevik revolution in Russia, and of course 35 million in China, Mao Zedong, and of course the 2 world wars as well created all that kind of things. Of course, political, economical, tell them those are things, and of course religion has been all used for that kind of things. Do you think that the 9/11 events had a lot of impact on peace and security in the world?
See, 9/11, we can discuss this for hours. Who was really behind it? Was it 9 or 11 Muslims, mostly from Saudi Arabia, a couple from Lebanon? What was a possible reasoning? Because we don't know, we can only speculate. And we've got circumstantial evidence. We don't have actual evidence. We haven't had anyone coming forward and saying, I did it, and I'm a member of this organization or that organization. So it's difficult to know exactly, but just based on circumstantial evidence and sort of speculation as well, we can speculate based on when a crime happens. I think I'm going to have to plug. Just give me 1 second.
Yeah, go on.
My battery is
going flat. Yes,
it's going flat, and I'm going to have to plug the charger in before it goes.
Right.
Just give me a second. Let me just.
Usually I do that, I think, charge it before we start. Anyway, go.
Yeah, right. So we can look at it from different angles. I mean, you can just, who did it? Well, let's see what happened, and what was the impact, and who benefited.
And do you think that means the aftermath of the incident, who benefited from it?
Well, exactly, because when a crime happens, the first questions that any detective will ask is, motive and who benefited from this crime? why did it occur? Well, who did it? Why would they do it? Who would benefit from it? These are obvious questions in any kind of crime investigation. And we can, for example, at that
And you are
time,
innocent until proven guilty.
unfortunately, the way it's worked out, the guilty have been mentioned. Now we have been told you prove your innocence. How do you do that? Therefore, let's pick on a couple of things. Each of those buildings were constructed with 47 steel girders. And they made that, the building, the two towers, 110 floors high. By the way, you said, Americans died. I remember reading in terms of who was involved, those who died. There were 500 catering workers who had been brought in from Bangladesh and Pakistan, 500. And they, what I remember, were given secondary priority when the building was being evacuated. This is what I remember reading. 500, and they were mostly, I would think, Muslims from Bangladesh and Pakistan. Also, I remember very clearly, because all this was there at the time, right at the top of one of the towers, the first two, I think the top two floors, was a Turkish bank. Now, again, large number of Muslims actually died in 9/11, something that is not really mentioned much. But I remember these because I remember 9/11 like yesterday. I'm sure like you do as well. We all remember where we were because it was such a horrific event. I remember I was sitting in my office and in the Human Appeal building on the ground floor. I think you remember it. In Fallowfield. And one brother came downstairs in the morning because I was there for 9 o'clock. He came down and he said, "Have you watched the news?" And I said, "No, what's happened?" He said, "You need to watch the news." And, and I can tell you, my instant reaction was to just go numb when I saw what was going on. And I just went numb. I said, and I remember the feeling like it was yesterday. I said to myself, the world is about to change. Someone has decided Islam is enemy number one. And it could not be Muslims who did this because this is not in our interest, not in anyone's interest from a Muslim perspective. But we know whose interest it will be when the world turns against Islam and Muslims. That was my immediate feeling when I saw those pictures of those planes going into those buildings. Just total speechless, totally speechless and numb. State of shock, because I knew immediately the implications of what was taking place at that moment. And of course, what's transpired is exactly what I felt at that moment. That sense of numbness and total shock and horror at what was happening, and seeing those people jump from 100, floors high, jumping out of those buildings and stuff, and it was horrific. But then I was glued for about 3, 4, 5 days. I can tell you, I did nothing else but just watch every single newscast. And it became clear that something wasn't right here. Because you see, live news, you can't filter it. It's just coming out. It's just coming out at you. The editor doesn't have time to edit it out because it's live. It's not able to. And there were a number of things which just didn't add up. How they immediately, Bush said it was bin Laden. I thought, how the hell do you know it was him? What evidence is there? But of course, this had all been pre-planned. And when you look at the actual buildings, as I said, 47 steel girders in each of those buildings. And they built them tall because they had discovered it was a Muslim, I think some Dr. Fazlun, someone, I think he was a Bengali Muslim, if I'm right, who he was an amazing engineer. You can check him on the internet, who had come up with a new mechanism of clamping the, or basically making the buildings tall and strong and stable. And that's why they were, because of his design, they were able to make them 110 floors high. Otherwise, they would never make them so high. Now, that's 110 47 steel girders. That's a lot of steel girders going through that building. Secondly, to make it super strong, there was a steel jacket that went from the bottom of the building right up to the top. Steel jacket, making the whole building absolutely super, super strong. So 47 steel girders, plus a steel jacket all the way around. Now, what went into those buildings? Planes loaded with kerosene. Now, kerosene in ideal temperatures burns at about 1,000 degrees centigrade. Those were hardly ideal temperatures, 100 floors up or 80 floors up. And so the scientists were saying that probably the temperature of the kerosene wouldn't have burned at above 600 degrees centigrade. Maybe 700 degrees centigrade, but maximum is 1,000 anyway. Steel melts at, I think, 1,500 degrees centigrade. So at most, the fire would have not totally melted, would have softened that steel at maybe 600 to 800, 900 degrees centigrade. So that's one thing, right? Also, when, as you're walking and somebody kicks you in your right leg, and so it becomes weak, which way are you going to drop? Towards the right, because there is no support there. Yes? Mm-hmm. Whichever leg, is no longer, whichever side is no longer supported.
The way to go through it.
Now, the common sense would say that if the plane is going to go into the building to, say, the right, then it's going to tilt that way to the right. Yes? Mm-hmm. Because of the
impact. The impact, yeah.
It would, because there's no resistance, there's nothing to hold it up, because you just damage the steel in that particular section. So it would naturally fall in that direction where the plane went. What actually happened? What actually happened was that the top floor, and of course it would take a long, long time for it to fall over and make a mess of the surroundings. It would fall over, and we're talking about 90, 100, 110 floors toppling over one side to one side. What actually happened was that somehow
collapsed
the whole building collapsed straight in a lovely pile right onto its own foundations, in its own footprint, not to one side or the other, on its own footprint. And what actually happened was that, like a, I don't know if you understand, a pile driver.
Yes, yes, yeah.
A pile driver, it forces something down, vertically downwards. Yeah? What actually happened was that the top floor, the 110th floor, now, if even there was a 1 second delay between the 110th floor collapsing onto the 109th floor and the 109th floor collapsing onto the 108th floor. Even if there was a 1 second delay, because obviously, you know, you still got plenty of steel, you got concrete and all the rest of it, yeah? So 110 floors, let's just say at least 110 seconds to fall 110 floors. Would you agree? Using a bit of common sense.
Yeah.
What actually happened? The 110th floor hit the ground in exactly 10 seconds. 10 seconds, not 110 seconds, 10 seconds. So forget about conspiracy theories. This is what the world saw with their own eyes. What happened was the top floor, only in one situation, one explanation, could it hit the bottom, the ground floor in 10 seconds. That's called free fall. How could free fall occur? Only if the 110th floor experienced zero resistance from the floor below, which experienced zero resistance from the floor below, which experienced zero resistance from the floor below. In other words, they had already been taken out, so they offered zero resistance. So what you would have expected was tush, 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 yeah, as they became compressed. What actually happened was tush, straight down. How could that happen? Only if the lower floors offered zero resistance. And that could only happen if they had been taken out before the top floor hit the lower floor.
Right. I think you're talking about some civil engineering. I think, and I believe simulation on the computer will do that. I think they can simulate it.
And that means what? That is what we see. If you go on the internet and just Google the demolition of tall buildings. And, you know, many of them have been filmed where they put explosives in specific places in their joints, so in their weak spots, and then it's all computer controlled. So that
controlled explosion, controlled demolition, yes.
First, I mean, I'm telling you this because I heard an expert say this. Okay, so this is not from me guessing or speculating. This is an expert in demolitions who said this is how we do it.
Controlled demolition, yes.
Right? These tall buildings, how do you make sure they don't damage the surroundings as you bring them down? So you put explosives on the outer and on the inner, on certain places. So the computer then destroys the inside from the top, and then the building collapses inwards from the top, and then the computer makes sure that the explosions take place at the right time, so the inner core collapses and the outer walls collapse inwards, not to the right, not to the left, but inwards. And the computer controls the entire demolition process so that the inner part gets destroyed first, and then the outer just comes and gets cut up automatically through the explosion, and it comes down in a lovely, nice pile. Lots of dust, yes, but nothing falling to the left or the right to damage any buildings surrounding.
And you know, after that 9/11, yeah, go on.
And that is precisely what we saw on 9/11.
And therefore, the aftermath of this 9/11 wars, Afghanistan, Iraq, Syria, Libya, Yemen, all.
Yes, this was a plan that had been put into practice. That had already been. See, look, this sort of military planning takes months of preparation, not overnight. Months of preparation. So you have a particular plan in mind to take out certain countries who may be enemies of your friendly country, yes? And you then need a massive big reason to go in and destroy those countries. And the more horrific the incident, the more excuse and the justification you have to go on this big plan of destroying those countries which are enemies to your friendly country that fears the existence of these countries around it.
Right, I think we will have to, move.
Plenty more to say on this, plenty more.
Yes, I understand.
Tons of it. For example, I mean, look, again, I'm not going to go into any conspiracy theory stuff that, you know, some people were warned and they didn't turn up for work. I mean, you know, when we have a real evidence, we can go down that road. But without the real evidence, it would be wrong to speculate. But certainly we can say, you had that building 7, which collapsed in sympathy to the other two, it seems. You know, it saw its two elder brothers collapsing, and it thought, well, why should I be standing? I should collapse, even though no plane has touched me, right? And it just 47 floors, yeah? A 47-floor building in most countries would be probably the tallest building in the country. And that building collapsed without any plane touching it.
Mm-hmm.
And these demolition jobs take days and weeks to plan because the explosives have to be put in very specific places by experts.
Okay. Now, I think we want just to maybe finish with that. I think, you know, this...
And there's loads of other things. Oh, I think, yes, we've had our hour.
Yes, yes. I think we were talking about maybe 5 minutes just about the COVID-19 and Greater Manchester lockdown again, the 6 people rule and all this kind of thing. And now Manchester is expecting almost 18,000 to 20,000 students to come in. And they are telling them that if any break, that is the infection is getting on, you will not be going home, you'll be staying where you are and everything. Do you think this university will be managed like schools they started, but some schools have to lock down and all this kind of thing?
Well, I was listening to a report on the news, and they were saying that universities are going to be turning into care homes because, you see, the problem with universities is that you've got students coming from all over the country.
All over the world.
Well, exactly. All over the world they're coming from. So if a student comes from a place of high infection rate, or from a part of a country, for example, now Bolton has got the highest infection rate. So if a student from Bolton goes to a university in London somewhere, or Oxford or Cambridge or Manchester or whatever, Are they going to be quarantined? What's going to happen to those students? Are they going to be discriminated against? Are they going to be treated differently to other students?
Therefore, I think they will increase testing in the university. They will have to do testing.
Testing and extra, I think, is it Exeter University has already had a deal with a private testing firm to come and test their students. This was announced, I think, yesterday. I was listening to this on the news. It was the first.
And do you think that student will keep social distancing and all this?
Well, the problem is, here's another problem. The biggest culprits are young people in their 20s. Yeah?
Why? Why this?
They're the culprits because, you know, they know the virus is really not going to harm them much. Okay?
Right.
And so they are partying, they are going to pubs, they're going to nightclubs, they're having their raves, they're getting together, and they're not bothering to socially distance. And they don't care if they have it because it's not going to harm them much. Maybe a bit of a flu or something, and that's it, they'll be fine. But they are so selfish that they could be taking it home to their parents and grandparents and to other people who they could end up killing.
Therefore,
And
the elderly people
problem.
can be actually infected even by young people. Yeah.
The elderly much more. So because they know it's hardly going to affect them, they are acting very selfishly, and that's why it's rising. And of course, it's true to say that there's a higher rate of infection within the Muslim community, Asian community generally, because not just genetically, we can discuss that perhaps some other time in terms of health and what have you. Health issues is something we need to be talking about at some stage. But of course, Muslims are generally are more likely to be employed in a position where they are more exposed to the wider public. So bus drivers, taxi drivers, doctors, nurses, you know, care homes, etc. Their jobs rose to the public, and so they are more, and that is what's happening.
Right. Okay. I think we will have to stop here, and I think we have passed the hour mark anyway. Inshallah, next week, inshallah, we'll have more to talk about as well. And as usual, thank you very much, Asad Zaman, for your time as well and for your points as well. And I hope you enjoyed listening to our program. And of course, next week we will have another program, and we hope, inshallah, you join us then. With that, we say, Subhanakallah wa bihamdik, nashhadu astaghfiruka wa atubu ilayk. Jazakumullah khairan, Allah reward you. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi ta'ala wa barakatuh.